So I started my Witcher 3 video game journey a few months back. And prior to me starting that game, I wanted to have a little bit of knowledge. I wanted to understand some of the characters, the world that I was going to be getting invested in and immersed in. And there were a lot of recommendations of how to do that. And that wasn't by watching the Netflix show, it was by reading the books. So I have the whole collection back there, but I did read this book first, The Last Wish. It's in a collection of short stories and really introduces Geralt in the best way possible. I have some thoughts. I want to talk about those today. So let's do that. Let's talk about The Last Wish. Stay tuned. All right, so I'm doing this backwards. Like I probably should have did this book review months ago before I started the game, but now I played 70 hours of the video game, so it is what it is. But listen, I'm guessing that like a lot of you, I came to this book series through those other forms of media. Maybe it's the Netflix show, maybe it's the video game. I wanted to fall in love with this world through the video game specifically, which I can already tell you after 70 hours. I know I haven't completed the game, but it is one of the best RPGs that are ever made. It is probably my favorite game now. So when I decided to finally read this source material, I figured I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was going to be a gritty, serious, monster-slaying adventure, and I knew that there was this stoic hero. And don't get me wrong, the book has all of that. But it's also so much more in ways that were genuinely shocking. Like the parts in this book were hilarious and also more philosophical than I ever thought it would. So the first thing that really hit me and really struck home to me was, and you need to know this going in, right? That this isn't a normal novel. This is a collection of short stories. They're all tied together by this present-day storyline where Geralt is recovering from injuries at a temple. The structure is actually one of its biggest strengths. Each individual story does feel like its own little episode, like almost like Monster of the Week type of contract deal, but they all build on each other and paint this really rich picture of Geralt in this world that he lives in. It makes the book incredibly fun to read because it's so varied. But you have to know about the format, otherwise the timeline can feel confusing for sure. All right, so the other thing is too, there's some seriously twisted fairy tales going on here, and it's phenomenal. The thing that absolutely captivated me about The Last Wish was how it grabs these classic fairy tales and twists them into something dark. Like, it's morally messy. A lot of the times, it's brutally realistic. Sapkowski, he isn't just telling these stories or retelling these stories. He's pulling them apart. He's looking for that grain of truth in every fable and asking, what would happen if these curses and magical beasts were real and they existed in a harsh, cynical world? The absolute best example of this, and my personal favorite, is the grain of truth. Like, I like The Lesser Evil, which is probably one of the most popular stories, but A Grain of Truth was great. And, you know, the second it started, I knew what it was. It was a spin on Beauty and the Beast. Geralt stumbles upon this isolated, decaying manor, which is home to a monstrous boar-like creature. But instead of finding a prisoner, Geralt finds a host. And this beast is surprisingly kind and welcoming and even charming. And he invites Geralt in, he gives him food and wine, and tells him this story about how he got cursed after doing something awful when he was younger. And that is where the story gets brilliant. The beast isn't some sad, tragic figure. What was his name? Nivellen? I think it was Nivellen. He's actually, I probably should have looked that up before I even did this, but whatever. He's actually sort of gotten used to being a monster. It's given him this weird kind of confidence. The locals leave him offerings, and he's not even alone. He has this mysterious, beautiful companion named Verena. And this is where Sapkowski just pulls the rug from under you. You're settled into the story, right? You think you know, but Geralt's Witcher Centricist is screaming that something's wrong, guys. The story slowly peels back the layers and reveals that the beauty in this version is not at all what she seems. She's a Bruxa. She's a vampire. And her relationship with this beast is way more complicated and even sinister than a simple tale about this girl seeing the good in a monster. Then there's the final confrontation, which is just a masterclass in subverting your expectations. Like, totally. The story doesn't end with a simple kiss breaking the curse. It ends in bloodshed. And this is a revelation that in this world, true love can be just as monstrous as any curse can be. It really hammers home one of the book's core themes. Not everything that looks like a monster is evil. This dark, clever approach to folklore pops up in pretty much every story. From a grim take on Snow White, which is related to the lesser evil, to the politics behind this cursed princess in The Witcher. It was this constant upending of what I expected that made the world feel so fresh and dangerous. Now listen, also, we've got to talk about Geralt, because Geralt is hilarious. He's like this brooding philosopher. Going into this, the image I had of Geralt was totally shaped by the games, right? I've seen images of Geralt in the video games, and I've heard the voice a little bit from the gaming aspect, but for me, like, it was a man of few words. He had this gravelly voice, and he was just a pure badass. Like, that's what I thought going in. And yeah, Book Geralt is definitely a lethal fighter, but I was not prepared for his actual personality in, like, word form. The man is a professional grouch, dude. Like with a surprisingly sharp, dry wit. He's cynical, he's pessimistic, but he uses his sarcasm like it's a second sword, and it's genuinely hilarious. He's a guy who is always finding himself in these absurd situations, usually against his will, and his eternal thoughts and quiet, cutting remarks are just a constant source of the humor. Like, this isn't a hero who just grunts. Geralt is deeply intelligent, well-read, and he gets into trouble just by being too clever for his own good, and it's the same in the games. He'll get into these, like, philosophical debates about the nature of evil, destiny, humanity, sometimes with the very monsters he's being paid to kill. One of the most defining parts of his character is his struggle with the morality in a world that's almost completely gray. Like, this is perfectly captured in the story of the Lesser Evil, which explains how he got the infamous title, the Butcher of Blaviken. Now, in this story, Geralt gets caught, and he's caught between a paranoid sorcerer who wants him to kill this cursed princess, and the princess herself is dead set on getting bloody revenge against the sorcerer. So both sides are trying to manipulate him, and both of their plans are going to get innocent people killed. Geralt's philosophy is super clear. Evil is evil, lesser, greater, middling, it's all the same. If I'm to choose between one evil and another, then I prefer not to choose at all, right? But the story forces him to choose. In a desperate attempt to stop the massacre, he makes a choice that leads to bloodshed right in the middle of a town square, and the very people that he just saved don't see a hero, they see a monster. A butcher who murdered people in cold blood. They throw stones at him, they run him out of town. It's tragic, it's ironic, it's the perfect, like, darkly funny summary of what it means to be a Witcher. And that was like my big introduction to, like, the world itself and how they view him, even though some of his actions seem pure-hearted, but it doesn't really matter. They see the Witcher for the Witcher, and it doesn't go any deeper for them. It's superficial as hell. And, it's a necessary evil, hated and misunderstood by the very people that he is actually protecting. This complex portrayal, the mix of a world-weary philosopher, a sarcastic observer, and a man trying to stick to this moral code in an immoral world, it made him so much more compelling than I ever expected. Now, I will say, everything has been great so far, but I do have to just say that the pacing goes from really good to a little bit off, and sometimes it's so good in the best way possible, and other times it's just like, some things just didn't quite land. And we can get into that in a second, but, the short story format, it means you're constantly jumping from a tense monster hunt to, like, a political negotiation, to a bar fight, to whatever else it may be. But what really pushes this book forward is the dialogue, in my opinion. Sapkowski does have a gift for writing some sharp, witty, incredibly fun conversations, even though some of the words used aren't, like, the most in-depth use of adjectives or whatever, which is fine. And that's not a knock. It just is what it is. It's an easier read. Let's put it that way, and I'm totally okay with it. And the absolute peak of some of this is the dynamic between Geralt and Dandelion. Like, listen, Dandelion, for me, when I met him in the video games, I was like, holy crap, that's exactly how the book painted him, right? That's the picture that I had in my head. And the game just kind of expanded upon it and just really made me fall in love with these characters because of the portrayal of Dandelion and their relationship with Geralt. And we know Dandelion's the complete opposite of Geralt. He's flamboyant, he's arrogant, he's a hopeless romantic, and he's just a magnet for trouble. He's always getting in trouble in the games as well. And we're trying to find him in the game. We can't find him forever, and we think the worst has happened to him, and then he's okay. And Ciri's helping him, and it's a whole thing. But their friendship is built on this mix of mutual annoyance and this deep, unspoken loyalty, right? They never talk about it. The banter between them is nonstop and gives the book so much of its humor. Dandelion is constantly dragging the brooding Geralt into some new mess, usually involving like an angry husband or a get-rich-quick scheme, and Geralt has to grudgingly, or begrudgingly, bail him out while they trade insults. It's beautiful. But their friendship also brings out a different side of Geralt. Around Dandelion, he's more talkative and even funnier, and you really see the genuine affection that he has for this over-the-top bard. It's a classic odd couple pairing, and it just works. It balances the grimmiality of Geralt's job with moments of pure lighthearted fun. The dialogue isn't just for laughs, though. These conversations are packed with the world building, political intrigue, and philosophical questions. You learn about the tensions between humans, between elves and dwarves, and it's not from some boring like info dump, but from a heated argument in a tavern. Like, this dialogue heavy style makes the world feel so lived in and so real. It's a book that trusts you to keep up, and the result is this fast-paced, immersive read where every conversation is thrilling. So a couple things that I didn't love, because I have to mention this too, because I'm just going to be honest. It obviously wasn't a perfect book, but what is perfect? And, you know, there's a couple things that didn't quite land, I guess I would put it. The main one for me is the direct result of the short story format that I was also just praising, which is kind of confusing, but while it does keep things varied, the non-linear timeline can get confusing, right? Especially for someone new to this world. The book jumps between present day, framing kind of stories and tales from Geralt's past without much warning. And if you're not paying close attention, if you're not like actively reading this book, it's really easy to feel a bit lost. And that can be jarring, and it can pull you right out of the story. Also, a side effect of the whole Monster of the Week style is that, not every single story is going to be a home run. Like I mentioned, The Greatest Truth, Lesser Evil, those are really good, fantastical writings, and they're just packed with philosophy and emotion. But a few of the other adventures, while they're still obviously entertaining, they don't quite live up to that sort of experience, right? They're good, but they just don't have that depth of the book's best moments, which can make the pacing also feel a little uneven. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. But these are pretty minor complaints in an otherwise fantastic book, but they were definitely things that I noticed. So if I had to pick one moment that perfectly captures this book's chaotic mix of action and magic and humor, it's got to be the title story, The Last Wish. And this is how Geralt first meets Yennefer. And for those of you that know Yennefer from maybe just the books or from the Netflix show or from the game, she's beautiful, right? Yennefer is beautiful, and she has this way about her that is just so endearing, but she's also super tough, and that's what makes it sexy as well. And you can tell that these two are just like meant to be together. However you feel about her, it's pretty obviously that the chemistry is there. And let's not even start about the unicorn. I won't talk about the whole thing, but there's a lot involved in that story specifically. And it's like this whole chaotic, destructive, like surprisingly funny battle of wills between them. It's just a really, really good story. And there's like moments of desperation, and you just have to read it to understand. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude my review, or whatever you want to call this experience, with this book. I think The Last Wish is phenomenal. It really does a great job pulling in those dark fantasy elements. And introduces you to Geralt, which really leaves you wanting more, right? You want to continue to understand these characters. You want more of the stories. And I think that's the common theme here, is that you want more and more once it's done. And the good thing is the writing is very digestible. And Sapkowski was able to bring life into this world with these short stories, with the collection of stories. And I thought he did a phenomenal job. Now, I am not a critique or an expert on writing specifically, so I really can't speak to a lot of that. But as an average reader, it was an easy read, and it was entertaining throughout. It was a book that it was hard to put down, but also you can put it down because of the format itself. So I would say if you haven't checked this out, definitely do so. And also, if you have read all these books, let me know what your favorite one was, because I'm going to continue to read these. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. Until next time, see you.